about my dissertation work, which is on novel numerical procedure for limit analysis and in its implementation to planar, axisymmetric, and three-dimensional geomechanics stability problems. Okay, so this is the short thesis overview of my thesis. I have to speak a lot more, but the time is very limited. That's why I'm not going to focus any details about everything. I welcome questions at the end of my presentation. At the beginning, I will introduce and discuss about theory of limit analysis. Then I will briefly discuss about the objective of this present thesis work. And these blue colored points are my original contributions. I will briefly go through this contribution, and finally I will conclude the thesis by discussion about the future research work. So stability problems are very common in mechanical and civil engineering, where we want to determine maximum load carrying capacity of a structure, which the structure is subjected to various complicated load and geometry and boundary conditions. To solve this type of problems, we have different methods generally used. These are limit equilibrium method, slip line method. This limit equilibrium method and slip line method gives very good, very accurate solution. Yes, sir. But these are the demerits that it can be used for a general proposed software development. And FEM quite extensively used for solving these stability problems. But FEM has the demerits that it uses a lots of iterative and incremental analysis procedure, along with a well-defined constitutive modeling should be defined. And but the numerical limit analysis procedure for this kind of problem is found to be very efficient and accurate to give a very accurate solution. The present thesis work mainly based on the numerical limit analysis. So the numerical limit analysis mainly based on upper and lower bound theorem, and it can be extended to develop a general purpose software by using discretization method and different advanced optimization method techniques. And so here I have, in this dissertation, I have worked on many advanced discretization methods and optimization techniques to improve the scope of numerical limit analysis. And this is basically another advantage of this is in this method we solve two types of problems independently, the lower bound limit analysis problem and upper bound limit analysis problem. Lower bound limit analysis problem where stress is the basic variable, but upper bound limit analysis problem have strain rate and velocities are the basic variables. These two problems are solved independently, and the exact solution lies in between these two bounds. Therefore, this itself a self-validating kind of analysis can be done. And before proceeding further, we should be aware about what are the plasticity relations it should be obeyed. So I assume the material is perfectly plastic. It is obeying Drucker's stability postulate. The yield surface is convex and the associated flow rule is being obeyed. And under this condition, if omega is the domain of a body, and it is surrounded by boundary gamma, displacement boundary condition gamma u, and traction boundary condition gamma t, and it is subjected to known body forces B naught and unknown body forces beta B. Beta is the load factor, which is the basic variable to be determined, and it is subjected to tractions, known traction T naught and unknown traction beta T, and also we are introducing some discontinuities within the boundary, because if a footing is resting on the soil surface, soil domain, it is observed that at the end of footing, the stress and velocity discontinuities are observed, and these are very well captured if we are introducing some discontinuities within that. So based on these conditions, if you will define the load, we will obtain the load factor obeying these equilibrium conditions, discontinuity equilibrium conditions, stress boundary conditions, and yield condition. The load factor obtained will always be lower than the exact load bearing load factor of the solution of the problem. Therefore, we can convert it to the optimization problem to maximize the load factor to obtain the exact load bearing capacity factor. And the upper bound limit analysis, that if we will calculate the external work done by known body forces is pi naught, and unknown body forces is pi beta, and the internal work done mainly have two parts. One is due to power dissipation within the domain, and one is power dissipation along the discontinuities. Then by equating this internal and external work done, and if the velocity and strain rate fields are kinematically admissible, the load factor determined in this way always gives the upper bound to the actual collapse load. Therefore, we can convert it to a optimization problem to minimize the load factor to obtain the exact value of load factor. And the load factor beta is always bounded between beta minus and beta plus. Therefore, we need to reduce the gap between beta minus and beta plus to obtain the exact value of bearing capacity factors. If analytical solutions are possible, then it can be directly the beta minus or beta plus will match. But for complicated geometry, complex loading conditions, these analytical solutions are never possible. Therefore, we need to use some discretization technique. But before going to that, I want to mention that the lower bound limit analysis, the stress are the basic variables, and upper bound limit analysis, the strain rate or velocities are the basic variables, but the plastic power dissipation function and the associated flow rule conditions are found to be dependent upon the stresses. So deriving, so how to incorporate that into upper bound limit analysis, that will be one of the major research work of this present dissertation. So if analytical solutions are not possible, what we do, we discretize the domain by using finite element method, and we obtain the constraints by using lower bound upper bound theorem. Then by using finite element method, those are converted to algebraic equations, and finally optimization problem is found, and which can be solved by using any optimization technique. But the problem associated with finite element discretization are like lower order finite elements are generally used to obtain the rigorous solution, but the approximation by lower order finite elements are not that accurate, and volumetric locking issues are always arrive when we are modeling to incompressible or nearly incompressible materials like clay and soil having less phi value. And because the constraint associated to enforce the flow rule condition exceeds the degrees of freedom associated with the finite element method, that's why it is no feasible mechanism could not be developed. Then high sensitivity to stress and strain rate gradient, although adaptive meshing is a solution to that problem, but for adaptive meshing, for generating unstructured mesh for higher order or 3D element is quite difficult, and for adaptive meshing, this algorithm for higher order 3D elements is difficult and computationally not so efficient. Another thing is we deal with optimization algorithms. The optimization problem which we are deal with mainly nonlinear and non-smooth. Nonlinearity comes in lower bound comes from yield criterion, and upper bound in upper bound analysis comes from dissipation function and flow rule constraints. But and the yield function is non-smooth. Therefore, linear programming, we need a large number of constraints to satisfy, which is not computationally very efficient approach. In nonlinear programming, the Hessian gradient should be well defined, which is not possible for the non-smooth yield criterion. That's why we need to approximate the yield criterion by using some smoothing technique, which reduces the computational efficiency and accuracy of the approach. Therefore, the modern conic programming approach I have used in this analysis, although it has been used by some researchers, but it is very efficient if the optimization problem can be formatted in the form of conic programming problem, like then it is able to solve this type of problem by using efficient primal dual interior point method. Another advantage of this is we can easily define the duality of this programming. That's why it has a very huge application, which I will discuss later in this thesis. So, and before proceeding further, I want to say what are the literature reviews has been done. So most of the this is summarized in this slide. So most of the work has been done by considering finite element as a discretization procedure. So my basic approach is to use some advanced discretization approach to simulate these problems. Another thing is that although conic programming approach has been used to solve more Coulomb yield criterion problems, but how to solve the rock mechanics problem or anisotropic or asymmetric soil mass problems, those has not been addressed by anyone. And the 3D, although 3D formulation has been formulated, but it has not applied extensively in geomechanics problems, and that will be one area I need to explore. So based on the literature review, I have concised my objective to 4 major areas. That is to formulate upper bound limit analysis problem for limit analysis using various discretization techniques, and expand the scope of conic programming to solve stability problems associated with soil and rock masses. And as I have already discussed, the plastic power dissipation function and associated flow rule constraints depend upon stresses I need, but in upper bound limit analysis, I need the expressions only dependent upon the kinematic variable. That's why we need to derive the expressions which is independent of stresses. That is one of the major objectives. And finally, to implement whatever the development has been done to solve planar axisymmetry and 3D geomechanics problems. And based on, before proceeding further, I need to introduce what is conic programming. Conic programming is a type of program where the objective function is linear and the constraints and the variable belongs to different cones. What are the cones? Cones can be linear programming cones, second order quadratic cones, or semi-definite programming cones. In semi-definite programming cones, matrices are variables instead of vectors. For example, the Moore Coulomb yield criterion can be directly converted as a SOCP programming problem. But the 3D Moore Coulomb yield criterion, which is a function of eigenvalues sigma 1 and sigma 3, which can be easily dealt by using this semi-definite programming problem. This is my first contribution, in which I have proposed a upper bound finite limit analysis formulation for Moore Coulomb axisymmetric problems. The need of study was in axisymmetric problem, the hoof stress and hoof strain rate is introduced as an additional variable. So how to deal with that variable and what will be its contribution in yielding or defining the load bearing capacity? That I need to how it will be addressed. And the second thing is that many people suggest that instead of constant strain triangular element, if you are using linear strain triangular elements, it can resolve the volumetric locking problem, or you can use the velocity discontinuities. But I want to test what will be its effect of different discretization procedure in obtaining the solution. That's why I have used 4 discretization methods. One is constant strain with continuous and discontinuous velocity field, and linear strain triangular element with continuous and discontinuous discontinuous velocity fields. These 4 approaches I have used to discretize the domain, and this is the diagram of how the element discretization has been done and what are the variables associated with with each element. And I have used this 3D Moore Coulomb yield criterion approach to solve my axisymmetric problem. So what I have done in this approach, actually the strain rate is unconstrained in nature, but to solve it by using semi-definite programming, we need the variable matrix should be positive semi-definite. To convert unconstrained, this can be done by using expressing unconstrained E matrix by using E plus and E minus, a combination of E plus and E minus, where E plus and E minus both are positive semi-definite matrix. And here physical meaning of E plus is strain rate due to dilation, and E minus is strain rate due to contraction. Okay, and these expressions are for 3D Moore Coulomb yield criteria has been proposed by Martin. I have made some modification to consider my axisymmetric problem, and correspondingly I have generated the plastic power dissipation function and associated flow rule constraints. And also I need to consider the velocity discontinuity effect. For that, it is observed that the sign of del U, del V is the normal velocity jump along the discontinuity, and del U is the tangential velocity jump along the discontinuity. So but del U can be unrestricted in sign, but del B should be positive. So those things are addressed in optimization problem as mentioned here. And also I have obtained the plastic fire dissipation function along the discontinuities. All these basic knowledge, and along with the discretization procedure, four discretization procedures what I have discussed earlier, by using those things, four different approaches to model the axisymmetric problem is generated, and that is used to solve a axisymmetric circular footing problem. Here the elements are discretized in such a way that a rectangle is divided into four triangles so that volumetric locking can be avoided. And also wherever we know that at corner of footing there will be huge velocity and stress jumps, therefore a very large number of elements has been provided there. So the results obtained show that, and Martin's results I have taken for the comparison, which is based on method of stress characteristics. So I found that the method 4 result, which is linear strain triangular elements along with velocity discontinuities, found to be very close to Martin results. Other methods are also method 3, which is 6-noded triangular elements without velocity discontinuities, and 3-noded triangular elements with velocity discontinuities is found to be close to each other. But method 1, which is constant strain triangular elements, is not suitable for modeling this thing. But method 4 is found to be the best approach to solve this type of problem. And what other thing I observed that, but the method 4 takes almost double the time of required that of method 3. That's why I was little dissatisfied, because first of all, if you will not address the volumetric locking issue by using this four triangular division, four triangular in a rectangle division, we can't solve the volumetric locking problem properly. And the second thing is that we need to provide more number of meshes wherever it is required. Here I know the failure pattern. Otherwise, when we are solving an unstructured mesh problem, it is not possible to solve a large-scale problems by using this methodology. That's why I was searching some advanced discretization procedures. So the advanced discretization procedure I have used here to improve the solution of triangular 3-noded constant strain triangular element, basically. Because the constant strain triangular elements, there are many softwares are available to automatic mesh generation. It has the automatic mesh generation capacity, so which will help us to do adaptive meshing and other things, unstructured mesh generation capability, all those have, which other finite element don't have. So this advanced discretization procedure is based on three concepts. First is smoothened strain rate domain, which is like instead of evaluating the strain rate at one local point, the strain rate evaluated as a known local throughout the volume. And while using this, the boundary integral is converted to the domain integral. That's why instead of Gaussian points, we need only the length of boundary and length of boundary, normal of the boundary, and the Gauss point value at the midpoints to evaluate the integration and to evaluate the strain rate. So in this way, instead of triangular element, we can use any domain to evaluate the strain rate. Although the velocity will be interpolated as in triangular element as it was done, but for evaluating the strain rate, we can use a different domain, which is called dual domain. And the dual domain concept I have used because to improve the factor degrees of freedom by constraints per element, because this factor is very important for addressing the volumetric locking issue. If this factor is higher, the volumetric locking will be reduced. So by using different dual domains, I have so like you can see, I have used different dual domain to formulate my strain rate vector. So which is like in the first case, it is a cell-based discretization. In the second case, it is node-based discretization, and another is edge-based smoothing domain formation. And another thing I have added, with edge-based, I have added a bubble node. It is found that introduction of bubble node is found to be improve the solution very much. So like these 5 procedures I have tested and found out, I have investigated which one the best procedure to address this to address our problem, Morculum and Morculum problem with limit analysis, basically. And I have used here a adaptive mesh refinement, which is based on two basic concepts. First is error indicator, posteriori error indicator to indicate where the mesh discretization is needed. And the second is based on the error indicator, a mesh generator will be there, which will produce the unstructured mesh which will generate the unstructured mesh. And so for the error indicator, I have used maximum strain rate, intensity of maximum strain rate. It is proposed by Martin as the intensity of maximum strain rate will be where it is higher, there should be the more number of elements will be required. So based on that, I have used the triangle software to generate unstructured mesh, and in that way, after each analysis, the error will be determined. Where the error is more, so there the refined mesh will be generated, and the mesh generation will be done by triangle software. And in this way, after 3-4 iterations, a refined mesh can be prepared. So I have used this procedure. So the approach is, first we have to need the average strain rate all over the domain, and we have to find out a targeted area. If the targeted area is less than the previous analysis area, then we need to refine the mesh. If it is not less than the previous analysis area, then we need to use the previous area, whatever it is. So based on this, I have solved mainly 4 mechanical benchmark problems and validated the results and find out which one is the best possible way to solve this kinematic limit analysis problems. And I found that, but here I am going to discuss about only one problem because lack of time, Pandry sponge problem, which is a strip footing problem. The objective here is to determine maximum value of load P. And this is analytically solved by Pandrel, but here I have used a initial discretization like this. After few iterations, you can see.
Devasis, excuse me, which slide you are showing presently? Slide number?
Okay, slide number. Okay, slide number is 22.
Oh, but here it is stuck. I think in mine it is showing 7 only. I don't know. Anyway.
So Sahu,
yeah,
on the screen, actually, I am just seeing there is a take control and then slide. Please don't press the take control.
No, I am not press.
So on the left hand side, I am seeing 2 arrows. So where it is indicating slide 22 out of 59. It is indicating 22 out of 59 right now.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Professor Jayant, even on my system, it is showing only 8.
Sir, you can try navigating through, click somewhere on the chat or activity, and then come back to this presentation. You will get to the current slide.
Okay.
Same, I was stuck at 12th slide, so I did that. So I came on the current slide that way.
Okay.
I hope you got.
See, my system, it is indicating slide 22 of 59.
It has come. Now it has come to 59.
Okay. Should I start?
Yeah, please continue, Devashish. Yeah, please continue.
So this is how the plastic power dissipation function looks like. And I have done the convergence analysis, and it is observed that node-based smoothened finite element method and selective edge-based smoothened finite element and introduction of bubble node has been found to be are alternative to the 6-noded triangular element. And it is observed that by using very few number of elements also we get the solution similar to the analytical solution, but I have used more number elements to check the stability of the numerical analysis, and it is found that these 3 methods are quite stable also. So the conclusion is that these 3 methods can be used as an alternative to 6-noded triangular element. That is my conclusion from this work. Then the next work is like I have analyzed an embankment resting on a soft soil, which is improved by granular columns. So because this finite element modeling of this is quite difficult, because the introduction of granular columns requires many number of elements, a very small number of elements to discretize the domain. And also it is highly 3D in nature. We can't use any simplification of 2D analysis, plane strain analysis. And so direct numerical simulation is quite impossible in this type of structure. So what I have done, I have addressed this problem by using composite material theory, homogenization theory actually, to address this problem. So I have taken some parameters, how the mesh is, how the materials are. And the base soil is a purely cohesive material. The granular columns are a purely frictional material, and embankment is a combination of C5 material. This I have taken because it will be simplified for me to provide the stability charts. That's why I have used this procedure. So what is homogenization procedure? If a model is, if a domain is modeled by composite materials, modeling of that domain is quite difficult. So what we take a representative volume element, and we analyze the representative volume element to obtain the modified property of the combined composite. And we assume that this property is obeyed throughout the domain, and we model the material by using the property of RV, representative volume element, and as a model it is as a homogeneous material. So similar concept I have used. I have taken a domain, a representative volume element, and I have analyzed that to obtain the combined yield criteria of stone column and surrounding soil. And instead of the Moore Coulomb yield criterion or other yield criterion, what I have replaced with the yield criterion obtained by solving this representative volume element. And although I don't need to solve the whole based on whole domain, I need to solve by using symmetry conditions and this plane strain condition. We need to solve only a small domain, and I have applied loads in different directions, so that I can get the so that I can obtain the yield condition by varying the angle beta and delta. I can apply the loads in different directions, and wherever the failure occurs, that gives a point in the yield surface. Similarly, loads are applied in different direction, varying from 0 to 360 degree, beta and delta varying from 0 to 360 degree, and the yield surface is obtained in this manner, and the yield surface are plotted. Now it can be observed yield surface will be a function of reinforcement, the friction angle of column, and the volume ratio of the granular material. And it is observed that with increase in friction angle and with increase in volumetric ratio eta, the domain of the compressive strength of this yield function is increasing, and which is of course it should be the case, because the granular materials are compressive in nature. So the improvement in compressive direction will be higher. And I have taken a cut at the tau shear strength is equal to 0 in that direction. What we observed that the initial Moore Coulomb yield criteria was to this dotted parallel two lines. After introducing this granular columns of different volume percentage, it is observed that how the shear strength is increasing, but it should be how the compressive strength of the soil is increasing. And it should be mentioned that here that that is infinity in compressive direction. The yield criteria is infinity in compressive direction. A similar behavior is also observed in Moore Coulomb yield criteria, whose strength is infinity in compressive direction. So for various value of phi r and eta, I have plotted this cross section. So the problem here is that to model this yield criteria, we need 1300 planes are required to be satisfied. So when we are discretizing the domain, we need to satisfy the yield criteria at each nodes. So it is going to be the optimization problem arising from this will be impossible to solve. So what I have done, I have used 7 ellipsoids to approximate this yield surface by using 7 ellipsoids. I have used a nonlinear nonlinear least square method to obtain the parameters of the ellipsoid, and in this way the 13,000 linear constant is converted to 7 ellipsoid constraints, and I have solved by using this method. And here the approximated result obtained from the 7 ellipsoids and the numerical solution is found to be matched very well with each other. And so these are the following, these are the steps, these are the parameters I have used to solve the problem. And the steps are: first you give the input parameters, and first analyze the unit cell to obtain the yield surface of reinforced soil, and approximate that yield surface by using ellipsoids, and then constraints to avoid the unboundedness of the strain rate direction. I told it is unbounded in one direction. And finally solve the embankment problem by replacing the reinforced soil material by using the yield criteria obtained from the RBE. And this is done, and the different values obtained are presented in result format by using stability factor and efficiency factor. And it is found that this matches very well with the results reported by other researchers. And this is the failure pattern somehow generated. Initially, when there is no reinforcement, this was the failure pattern. With reinforcement, it can be observed that this is not going to the base, and it should be this behavior is quite acceptable, because the reinforcement increases the strength, which does not allow the material to fail in that direction. So. And the next work was to, as I have told already, the conic programming formulations for Mohr Coulomb yield criterion is available, but what will be about rock masses, where the yield criterion we use is Hook and Brown yield criterion, which is very complicated in nature. And most importantly, this value of alpha also varies from 0.5 to 0.59. Although it is observed that variation of alpha value has variation of alpha value has very less impact when GSI value is more than 30. That's why. Okay. So what I have assumed first to solve this problem, I have assumed alpha is equal to 0.5, and then by using the property of symmetric stress matrix, I have converted this equation in the this equation into these 5 constraints, where 2 constraints are conic SDP constraints, and this constraints is SOCP constraints. Other 2 are linear constraints. So this yield criteria can be dealt with by using 2 semi-definite programming constraints and 1 SOCP constraints and other linear constraints. So in this way, I have solved this SDP problem, and I have analyzed the result by solving a strip and square footing problem. So as mentioned earlier, as I have approximated the value of alpha is equal to 0.5, that due to that for GSI less than 30, the behavior is not matching with the behavior observed by other researchers. That's why. So to address that thing, what I have used a iterative approach. Suppose the general yield criteria have a value varying from 0.5 to 0.9, where the modified yield criteria, which I have suggested the formulation, it has a value of alpha is equal to 0.5. So first iteration, alpha is equal to 0.5, and analyze the problem. And in the next iteration, then determine the value of A star, which will be used as a in the next step by equating these 2 equations. And by doing this type of iteration, by doing this type of thing, twice or thrice iteration, it is observed that this problem can be resolved, and it is approaching a constant value of the bearing capacity factor. So it can be observed that when GSI is equal to 10, it was the initial result, and after applying the iteration, this is matching with the report resulted by the reported by the researchers. And for GSI is equal to 40, all these 3 are matching. That means for this problem is mainly arises when GSI alpha value is less than GSI value is less than 30. So this This is the method I have suggested. And after that, I have already discussed the plastic power dissipation function and associated flow rule are a function of stress. But we need to use upper bound limit analysis. That should be a function of velocities and strain rates. So I have used here duality of optimization theory. If the yield function, it says if the yield function is convex and self-dual cone, then the plastic power dissipation function and associated flow rule constants can be obtained independent of stresses. This is proposed by Micronomopoulos. I have used for geotechnical problems. I have used a generalized form of SOCP, second order cone programming, and I have formulated the objective function set in such a way that the objective function of primal problem will give the value of dissipation function. And if we will form the dual, whatever the value of the objective function, it will indirectly give the value of plastic power dissipation function, and these are the constraints additionally needed to be satisfied. Those gives the associated constraints similar to associated flow rule constraints. Okay, this methodology I have been used, and although Moore Coulomb yield criteria formulations by using SOCP is already available, but I have used this methodology to verify whether our solutions are coming correct or not. And also Moore Coulomb yield criteria for plane stress and plane strain. And it is observed that it is found that our solution is found to be match exactly with the whatever the solution reported by the other researchers. Then I have addressed a set of problems if the soil material is anisotropy in nature, how to. So the yield criteria is mainly Hill's yield criteria, which is the extension of von Mises yield criteria. By varying the strength in X and Y and Z directions are different, and also tau and direction shear strengths are also different. This yield criteria can be directly expressed as a general form of second order cone programming, and also the plane strain problem of Hill's yield criteria. And also Yu and Sloan proposed that the cohesion in vertical direction and horizontal direction will be different for soil, because soil is deposited as a layer material. That type of problem also, that type of yield criteria also can be solved by using our methodology what I have proposed. And also there is another type of anisotropy in soil. Few people suggest that shear strength in compression, shear strength in tension, and shear strength in shear for soil is different. And also, so based on that, the yield criteria proposed by David and Christiansen also comes in the format of this second order cone, general form of the second order cone programming. Also, its 3D expansion UK yield criteria also comes under this generalized form of second order cone programming. All these yield criteria has been solved by the plastic power dissipation function and associated flow rule constants associated with these yield criteria are obtained by using duality of optimization theory, which I have discussed earlier. And the solutions have been obtained and verified. I only discuss only one result, which is like Yu and Sloan yield criteria. It is already solved by limit analysis by using linear programming approach, and it is found that the gap is too wider here between lower bound and upper bound solution. But by applying our approach, SOCP duality and linear strain triangular element, the gap between lower bound and upper bound is bound to be very minimal. And it gives very improved solution. Here the effect of anisotropy on yield function, the plastic power dissipation function can be observed also. So at the end, I have solved I have used the concepts of smoothened finite element method and optimization technique, conic programming optimization technique to solve a 3D rectangular foundation problem. So what is the need of study was basically to observe how to formulate the 3D kinematic limit analysis by using CSFEM and the radial point interpolation function, which is a meshless analysis approach. And also there are many results are available empirically or numerically, but there are many discrepancies are there. And the shape and depth factor presented in the literature are independent, but it is observed that the depth factor obtained is always depend upon the shape of the foundation. It is experimentally and also numerically observed. And also depth factor due to weight of soil is calculated as a combination of surcharge above the footing and unit weight below the footing, which is actually not the case. It is a simplified method to calculate, where so that is needed to be addressed, and also to provide new updated bearing capacity factor and to observe how the failure mechanism of a rectangular footing develops. So I have used smoothened finite element method here by using a rectangular element, and also I have used radial point interpolation meshless method. Here the objective is where the interpolation is done by using radial basis function and polynomial basis function. Radial basis function is to address the singularity issue, polynomial basis function to satisfy the patch test, and the meshless analysis method is used as a validation to CSFEM method. It is observed that CSFEM method is more stable. That's why I have used radial point interpolation method only to validate our result, whether it is coming correct or not. And also, so this is the problem definition I have used. Our foundation is at some depth, and the foundation's length, the thickness of foundation I have assumed as a 0, because if I'll consider thickness of foundation as a variable, then it will increase the number of variables of the problem. So we can't, it will be difficult for us to provide the chart. And I have applied a vertical velocity in the direction of V naught, and I have assumed the footing is rough. That's why no velocities in translational direction is allowed. And here the load Q is not due to weight of the footing. It is weight of the soil above the footing. It is additional surcharge load Q. And this problem has been analyzed. And another thing is that I have first obtained the shape factor, which is a function of L by B and phi, and the depth factor now is not only a function of D by B, it will be a function of L by B also. It is observed from numerical analysis, and also by varying the parameter L by B from 1 to 5, D by B from 0 to 5, and phi from 0 to 45. Different this is the mesh discretization. The different charts has been obtained also. And the size of domain and number of elements required to discretize the domain is determined by using a many convergence analysis. And also it is observed that the final strip footing analysis takes 1 minute of time, where for a square footing analysis 10 minutes of time. And when we are using the large domain for which L by B is equal to 5, D by B is equal to 5, 7 hours of time is required to solve the solution. And these are some bearing capacity factors are obtained. The bracketed results are the results obtained by using radial point interpolation method, and it is found to be quite well matched with the CSFEM method. But as I mentioned earlier, the CSFEM is more stable in solving the problems. That's why I have solved most of the depth factors I have obtained by using CSFEM approach. And this is the value of shape factors I have obtained, and it is for a different value of phi and L by B. And it is observed that shape factor S gamma follows a different trend than SC and SQ. And the depth factors are also obtained from different analysis, from the analysis also have been reported. And finally, I have made a comparison. It is observed that the bearing capacity factors proposed by Meyerhof and Hansen by using empirical or semi-empirical analysis formulae are found to be very conservative, while the Michalowski, who has used rigid block mechanism, is found to be quite higher. That's why the present analysis result is found to be good match with the radial point interpolation method, and also finite. It gives a little upper bound of the finite upper bound than the finite element results obtained. So that proves that our method is quite good. And if you'll compare the depth factor, there are no results, at least no numerical results for a depth factor is available. That's why I have compared my results with the empirical bearing capacity factors proposed by Hansen and Meyerhof. But you can see the difference. This black line is my result, and the dotted lines are their results. And it is observed that the Meyerhof and Hansen's results are based on that. And there will be no variation in depth factor with change in the shape of the footing. So which is not found to be correct in our analysis mostly. And it is observed also experimentally. So we have also we have presented the values are in chart form, and this is published, that is published in a good journal also. So finally, these are few diagrams how the velocity and plastic power dissipation function, and also this is the when putting at some depth how the plastic power dissipation function develops. And finally, with that, I am going to conclude this presentation by using. So these are the major contributions. A upper bound limit analysis, upper bound formulation has been proposed to solve axisymmetric problems by using HDP, higher order elements, and velocity discontinuity. Advanced discretization techniques, which considers smoothened finite element, dual domain, and adaptive meshing procedure, is used to solve the has been used to solve the kinematic limit analysis problems. And it is observed that node-based smoothened finite element method, selective edge-based smoothened finite element method, and edge-based smoothened finite element method, along with addition of bubble node, is found to be give better alternative to the linear strain triangular element, which is traditionally being used. And 3D formulation, kinematic limit analysis formulation by using CSFEM and radial point interpolation function has been proposed, and it is implemented to solve the bearing capacity factor of rectangular and square footing. And the lower bound formulation for rock mass by using Hook and Brown yield criteria has been proposed. Then plastic power dissipation function and associated flow rule constraints associated with this anisotropic and transversely asymmetric soil has been proposed, and it is validated with the results available. And also a embankment resting on the reinforced soil mass has been analyzed by using homogenization based kinematic limit analysis. These are the major contributions. These are the scope of for the future research work. I want to extend this. All the analysis I have done for associated flow rule condition, but many materials don't like soil. In many cases, don't obey the associated flow rule. So I want to extend this to non-associated flow rule condition. And also, I have mostly analyzed the problems associated, 3D problems associated with upper bound limit analysis problems. But the similar concept can be extended to lower bound also, so that a beta minus and beta plus, like load factor in lower and upper bound, can be found. And also, I want to model the structural element associated, like retaining wall, seat pile wall, and all these, how to address those problems. By that, I have to investigate. And large deformation analysis can be done by using sequential limit analysis. And I can consider also kinematic hardening of the material by using some modified theorem. And to use the homogenization approach to solve more complicated problems, where the reinforcement is not circular, maybe it is in the form of trenches or something, many different shapes of reinforcement can be provided. Those can be addressed. So finally, these are the publications from this research work. These all the research work has been published in good impact factor journals, and it also got award from IIT Roorkee Young Geotechnical Award for rock mechanics. Also, I got this award. And also, 2 papers are under review. The first paper is gone for minor revision. I have submitted the article, but I hope it will get published soon. And these are conferences I have attended. I have also got the best presenter award for this adaptive mesh-based this presentation. And finally, I want to end this presentation by thanking to all those who have associated with me for this last 5 years. And I want to express my gratitude to Professor Jayant Kumar, who was always there with me when there was when I was struggling to find out my research topic. He was there. When I was frustrated by seeing the critics received from the reviewers, he was always there. And today he is also there to support me in writing my thesis, reviewing my thesis. And he is more than a guide. He has worked as a friend with me. So I am really grateful to him. And I also appreciate, I acknowledge all the departmental faculties. They are very friendly, and they have taught me a lot, and they have helped me a lot. And also, I want to thank to all my lab mates. They are very cooperative, and we have lots of scientific discussions. And also, we have enjoyed the life these 5 years very well with them. And also, department lab and departmental supporting staffs. And I also thanks to thesis review examiner. He has timely sent me the reviews, and also he is present here to conduct the exam. I am very thankful to him. And reviewers of the papers, because of their criticism only, I have developed the standard of doing research. So I am very much thankful to them. And IGS IIC Young Members chapter, it is very innovative chapter. We are conducting. So it has all helped me a lot in improving my knowledge, understanding about geotechnical engineering, and MHRD for funding. And last but not the least, friends and family, they are always there to support me. I am very much thankful to them. And thank you. I'm ending my presentation. I am very much thankful to all the members who are attending this, to listen me. And I welcome any questions from.
Yeah, it's open for discussion now. Huh? Perhaps I can request Professor Sahu.
Okay.
The examiner, I think. Huh? Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Debasis. Not doctor yet. For that, we are having the BioOC examination. So, first of all, I must congratulate the. Am I audible there?
Yes, you are audible. Yes, sir.
So, first of all, I must congratulate the candidate for doing such a large body of work. He has done a lot of incremental development related to upper bound and lower bound theorem, and has also extended to the real life problem of footing and the embankment. So I must congratulate him on that. And there are some questions which I have pointed out. Can you just you can display them?
Okay.
Do you have the PPT or something?
Okay, I'll just check how to do that. Okay. Okay, I have addressed those comments. Let me. Okay. I have to search how to put that.
You can ask your question, Professor Sahu. Huh? If he's looking for all the question, I will also tell you.
Okay, then I can ask. I have a slide here with me. Question answers here. Okay. The first question is, what exactly are the contributions of the scholar? It is not clear from chapters 3 to 8.
Yes.
Because the research gap has not been clearly identified, especially in relation to research papers by Martin and Macrodimopoulos group, which is repeatedly cited by the candidate.
So their work has been cited because they have started the second order using conic programming in limit analysis, but they have only addressed the Moore-Coulomb yield criteria first of all. But I have proposed the for Hook and Brown yield criteria for solving the rock mass problem, and also I have extended that to solve axisymmetric problems. I have used that yield criteria to solve axisymmetric problems, and also if you see all the contributions, first of all, I have used an advanced discretization technique, which he has used only finite element limit analysis. I have proposed an advanced discretization technique also. And the problem of embankment, solving embankment problem is totally different approach. It was not his work, or previously it has been used in finite element method, and somehow it is been used in limit analysis. But I have done a detailed analysis and proposed some this value of stability numbers and efficiency number based on that. That is my contribution. And also, like, just a minute. Okay. So and also the bearing capacity of footings. It was like a implementation work what I have developed in radial point interpolation method and CSAPM method by using advanced discretization techniques. Whatever I have developed, I have implemented here. So all these works although he has started only this, that's why it is more cited in the paper. He has started the work, but I have extended that work to large scope of limit analysis. That is my main major contribution.
Yeah, but actually, these things are not coming out from your thesis. Reading from your thesis, actually, this should be the major, or the in the beginning itself, you should have clearly stated that this is what is the research gap, and this is what I have addressed in this thesis or in this chapter.
Actually, in the
That you have
modified, okay, in the modified thing, I have in research motivation. I have already stated these things. I think, in the modified thesis.
okay. Okay. So you have already modified that, already included.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So the second question is in table 3.2 to 3.5.
Yes.
Okay. Uh, you are comparing accuracy of solutions.
Yes.
You say my solution is more accurate. So on what basis? And you are comparing with Martin 2004, which has been carried out using method of characteristics.
Yes.
And you is this the exact solution based on method of characteristics?
Okay. I want to say here that for circular footing, the differential equation and integral equations associated are very difficult to impossible to solve. Until yet, it has not been solved. Therefore, obtaining analytical solution or exact solution is not available for those problems. But whatever Martin's result is based on method of stress characteristics or slip line method. It is very well calculated result because they have used adaptive meshing to discretize the domain actually, and also very fine meshes they have used to calculate the result, and it has been used as a benchmark to many circular footing results to validate the results. And also that's why, but the problem with that method is that it can be extended to general proposed software formulation, while that is our major concern here. We want to expand it to solve a general proposed software, to develop a general proposed software. So that's why I have used his results to compare my results, and you can find those things have been addressed in the modified thesis also.
No, my concern is which type of results do you get from the slip line method? Is it bound, lower bound, exact?
Yeah, it is little bit lower bound. Whatever the result status it says, it is little bit lower bound.
No, it can be upper bound also sometimes.
Yeah, it is stress based method, stress characteristic method. If you are using velocity based stress method of characteristics, you can get the upper bound result. But this is
okay.
Devashi,
So
sorry to stop you there.
Yes.
Can I interrupt here only for 1 minute?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
A little explanation of the difference between the slip line method and the lower bound limit analysis approach. What is the difference between the two?
So you are asking me, sir?
Yeah. You can elaborate on that.
Okay.
It will become clear the difference if you explain what is the difference between the lower bound limit analysis and the method of characteristics, which is the slip line method. Yeah.
In the slip line methods, first of all, we solve the differential equation by some characteristics equation. We solve this characteristics equation, but the characteristics equation can be solved when for like simplified problems where there is no material complicacy, or like the foundation resting on a homogeneous isotropic soil. This type of problem can be solved. Or,
I'm not talking about the problem, Debashis. I'm talking about with reference to equilibrium condition and yield condition. How these two techniques are different in terms of each other.
Okay. In
Slip line
equilibrium
method, how it get different from the your lower bound limit analysis. If you can elaborate on that, the point will become clear to processor.
Okay. In lower bound limit analysis, we use finite element discretization. In that way, the equilibrium condition is converted to set of algebraic equations, and which can be easily solved by using, which can be easily dealt with by using any optimization procedure. But slipline method, we solve the equation directly based on some formulas available results. Okay, so that is the major difference between these two methods. And also, yeah, so as it accommodate with finite element method, that's why it can be extended to deal with very difficult problems like complex loading or complicated boundary condition problems. But that don't have that facility in slipline method. Okay.
Yeah, Professor Sahu now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, my question is, if it is, see, slip line method is also not going to give you the exact solution. So
Yes.
when you are starting to compare with the Martin solution as if it is the exact solution, so that is what I was wanted to hear from you, that it's not the exact solution method, Martin 2004.
Yeah, it is not the exact solution.
It
But
is a classical solution. So compared to that,
yes.
you can't say that your answer may be even better than that in some.
Okay. Okay, I understood your concern. But yeah, it
Okay.
is till date it is the best result available what I have gone through literature through. So that's why I have compared with that solution. That can be done like that.
Okay. And what this use you obtain NC, NQ, and N gamma from your numerical analysis, right?
Yes, yes,
From upper bound theorems.
yes. So
So,
I have okay, sir.
can you explain how do you get NC, NQ, N gamma separately from the numerical analysis? Effect
So
of each component.
So while obtaining in NC, I have assumed that soil is weightless and there is no surcharge. And I have put some vertical velocity in the vertical velocity, constant velocity V naught in the vertical direction. For rock footing, I am assuming there is no motion in horizontal direction, or for smooth footing, I am assuming horizontal direction, it is free to move. So similarly, while calculating N gamma, I am assuming that C is equal to 0 and Q is equal to 0. Similarly, the NQ factor is also determined by analyzing in that way. So this is a
Okay.
method of superposition, but it is found to be quite acceptable in research in geometry.
Okay. So you are doing three analysis differently with
Yes,
different type of values, right?
yes, yes. To obtain the value.
Okay. And in chapter 8, equation 8.2 and 8.3, is there some mistake there?
So actually, I think you have seen the where the compression is positive. You have seen the expressions where compression is positive, and here I have taken tension is positive. So there is little bit sign difference. I think 1 plus sin phi and 1 minus sin phi, somehow there is difference. But I think that is the reason. But I have used, I have seen already verified and checked it. So I think
They are okay?
yeah, they are okay. Okay, if tension is positive, if tension is positive.
Just a minute. 8.2. Let me check out. Okay, it is something of related to the tension and compression strings.
Yes, yes, I hope so.
Okay. Maybe. So you have taken what tension positive?
Tension positive. Generally, geotechnical engineering, they take compression positive to express those things. But I have used tension as positive. That's it.
Okay. Then you have used unit cell concept. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So what is the assumption made for unit cell concept? Can you tell?
Okay, the basic assumption. Okay, basic assumption. Okay. So the basic assumption here is that I am assuming soil to be isotropic, and the one unit cell, the model of one unit cell does not depend upon the model of second unit, nearby unit cell. So whatever the parameters obtained for one unit cell does not depend upon the nearby unit cell. Both are independent. And second thing, third thing, I am assuming that the unit cell nature has been periodically followed throughout the structure. That means, if I can see, yes. So this unit cell is throughout the structure. It is periodically followed. This pattern is periodically followed, and in third direction there is no other loading is there. It is 2D case. Like there is no vertical load or any variation of loading in the third direction, Z direction.
So for your problem which you have taken, is the unit cell concept applicable?
Yeah, I have told you already. It has been used in finite element analysis very frequently. Okay, because this type of directly by using finite element problem, it is difficult to solve because the number of elements.
Can you just? I am not able to see your this anisotropic soil yield condition slide. Just a minute. Let me again join. And slide has stuck. Okay. So now in this problem, what about the unit cell beyond these boundaries?
Okay, I have used some periodic boundary condition. They call it is periodic boundary condition. So the boundary condition is such that it will not allow the rigid body motion. Okay, and also it is satisfied in such a way that it will follow the periodic condition. Means the parameters determined for the unit cell will not affect the parameters determined for the nearby unit cell. That's why some boundary conditions here fixed. Although it is an assumption that the unit cell itself will be independent from the nearby unit cell, but it will have
no. My question is on the boundaries. You do not have any columns. Do you have on the lateral boundary?
No, there is no columns at the boundary.
There are no columns. So the unit cell concept fails along that boundary.
Why? I don't understand. Why it fails along boundary? Because I have taken.
There is only soil. Na? You do not have any more stone column on the boundaries. So if your slip circle passes, then on the boundary there will be no stone column.
In boundary, you are saying no, but this I'll say this approach is something different. In this approach, first I am defining the yield function of the combined thing. Okay. So that automatically takes care of the if the slip surface is passing through column, means you can say it is just averaging the yield criteria of both two.
Debashish, I want to understand. Suppose you have 3 columns outside the embankment, right? Three rows of columns outside the embankment, right? I can see from this figure.
Yes.
Suppose there are only 1 row of column.
Okay.
Instead of 3.
Yes.
Still, you think your unit cell concept will be applicable?
So it will be applicable till when the reinforcement is till when the columns are there. After that, it can be modeled by using the general Moore Coulomb yield criteria. Okay. But it has also a limitation that the base of embankment should be much larger than this length associated with, means this dimension, this length dimension.
See, basically unit cell assumes that the same structure is present everywhere. It's a very large number of columns are present. Yes. So when you have limited number of columns,
yes.
So imagine a footing. If you are putting a footing on a limited number of columns, and imagine a footing which you are putting on a hundreds and thousands of columns.
Okay, understood.
Limited number. So confinement from the side will be much higher in the latter case compared to former.
Yes, yes.
So this is what I'm trying to. So related with that only, my third question here is, key this when once you do the homogenization of unit cell, it becomes a very simplistic problem.
yes, yes.
So my suggestion to you would be ki if you could have chosen 3D stability analysis of a limited group of soil, stone, column, mat, foundation all combined together, I think that would have given you much uh, more recent kind of research oriented problem rather than this. This is okay. This is
Okay.
for combining means you already have the solutions for such problem. For comparing with those, it is fine.
Fine. Okay.
So
Okay.
that, yeah. And the last question I just want to ask, you have compared in the very first paragraph of your thesis
Yes.
upper bound and lower bound theorem with the finite element analysis.
Yes. Yes. Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So can you tell me what is the you said ki finite element method is very complicated, and for every load increment you have to obtain the displacement and then you have to go to the failure, something of that sort. So is there any benefit of finite element over the limit state analysis? Because in limit state you get answers very quickly. Am I right?
Okay. Actually, the audio is not clearly audible. Actually, your voice is. Hello.
Oh, okay, okay. So can you tell the benefits of finite element analysis vis-a-vis limit analysis?
Um, Using a finite
Are you
element.
able to?
Okay. Use of finite element method helps in actually if you are not using finite element method, we can solve the limit analysis problems for a complicated problem like layers of soils are there. If loading is somehow complicated loads acts, horizontal, vertical, inclined movements acts. So this type of problem, the equation generated from those that will be difficult to solve analytically by using limit analysis method. So introduction of finite element method, this converts this differential equation to a set of linear algebraic equations. So in that way, it is very easy to solve. There are many procedures available to solve this linear algebraic equations. Okay. So in that point of view, yeah.
Though Debashish, this is not really related with your thesis, but just for your information, as you know, and you have also written that FEM is a very popular and robust method, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So one of the most important benefit of FEM vis-a-vis bound theorems or bound methods is it can give you displacement at every load increment.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
So if you, and you know, in the many of the geotechnical problem, it is the displacement which governs the behavior of the structure.
Yes, yes.
So that is one of the additional benefit you have with FEM.
Yes, that's
Otherwise, if you are looking uh, for the failure condition, in that case, of course,
yes,
upper bound and limit bound theorems are having the upper hand.
yes. So I told specifically the stability problems where we are more concerned about obtaining the load bearing capacity or
Yes, yes,
problems.
yes.
This method is more popular. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
That is all from my side, Jayant.
Thank you so much. Sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Sahu. And now I request Professor Anant Ramaswamy still is there. I request him if he has any question. Professor Ramaswamy.
Hello, yeah, I am here. I personally don't have any specific question, maybe a general one, since you have reinforced soil composites. You are using plasticity for this.
Yes.
Mr. Mahapatra, how do you account for soil moisture in this process?
Okay, I have not considered soil moisture in this process. In the homogenization based thing, I have not used soil moisture. I am assuming soil is dry.
So it's applicable for what? Cohesionless sands, not
No,
for cohesive clays.
no, it is applicable for both cohesive and cohesionless. Okay, but I have not considered the effect of moisture. Okay, uh, so I'm assuming the means I have not considered the effect of moisture. That's I want.
But then what kind of clay or layered soils can be homogenized in this manner?
Okay, the procedure can be modified to analyze the moisture condition, but I have not used that thing.
Okay.
Like instead of sigma, we can use sigma dash and all these things.
Okay. Supposing you are using geocells and other
Yes.
methods of soil treatment,
Okay.
how would you accommodate these features into your model? I mean, any kind of strengthening measure that you put in place to improve the SBCs.
Okay.
How would that get factored into this kind of model?
So one thing I want to say, when you are using some seeds, improving our soil nails, for that it is a you don't have to do this complicated analysis. You can because there is a strength improvement in only one direction, strength improvement in one direction only, and the volume does not matter there. Volume of reinforcement is very minimal there. So that problems can be directly solved by using homogenization technique. Okay, that will be very simple addition. We don't have to solve this thing separately to obtain the
Okay.
function. But
And what is the big picture? Supposing you want to convince people in IGS to use this approach, where do you think that you would find them making use of it?
okay, wherever the soft soil is reinforced by maybe columns, maybe trenches, okay, or what will be the best approach to improve the soil? That also can be analyzed and say what will be the optimal places where the reinforcement should be put to improve the soil bearing capacity. And the upper structure can be foundation or anything. It can be mat foundation or maybe it can be any structure. So
Do you see this being used in metro work, tunnels?
yes, yes, okay, yes, that can be used. I hope it can be extended to use. Like if railway track is running, what will be if the basement should be improved? Yeah, those things.
Okay, I'm done, Jayant.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Ramaswamy. Now I request others if they have any questions. Huh? Any of the other person who is here right now, I request if he has any query, so we should be able to answer. So it appears there is no query right now. So I think I should make this presentation right now. I think I should say Debashish has finished his job. Yeah, thank you, Debashish. And now I will make some remarks actually from my side as a supervisor.
Yes.
You see, basically one question which was asked by Professor Sahu, the difference between the slip line method and the lower bound limit analysis. I would like to make a comment here.
Okay.
In the slip line method, in the slip line method, what we do is we make the basic assumption that we are at failure at each and every point within the domain, and the equilibrium conditions are satisfied everywhere within the domain.
Yes.
In the lower bound limit analysis, we also make sure that equilibrium conditions are specified everywhere within the domain, but we make a point that the point is not at yield, but it should not violate the yield. It can be before yield. That is a basic difference between the two techniques. We try to find out the maximum load so that the yield condition is nowhere violated. In the sense, if there is a non-plastic zone which is being present in the domain, it is possible in the lower bound limit analysis, whereas in the slip line method, it is not possible. So that is a basic difference between the two, and therefore, there whatever you get, you will not be able to get the solution for a very general problem. I'm talking about the slip line method, whereas the lower as well as the upper bound limit analysis approaches, they will be able to find out the solution directly at failure, deal with the stability problem for any kind of complicated problem. So this is one remark from my side. Another thing, what I understand is, I think there was a question from Professor Ramaswamy about the moisture. In fact, this approach is recently being extended to the partly saturated soil as well. So therefore, in fact, Debashish has also started already doing some work on the partly saturated soil. And therefore, this can be easily extended to that, and there won't be any kind of problem.
So sorry, I can't understand the question properly. Maybe okay. Sorry for that. Maybe.
Yeah. But overall, I think, yeah. Debashish, you want to say something?
No, I am sorry. We are extending in that direction. Actually, unsaturated soil mechanics extension of this limit analysis approach, and also in that direction we are working.
Yeah, and last question which I was seeing was made by Professor Sahu was the finite element and our lower and upper bound limit analysis. Both are including finite elements. The conventional finite element is elastoplastic displacement based finite element approach, where you can get the value of the load for any value of the displacement, rightly pointed out by Professor Sahu. This is also presently the numerical limit analysis. It also includes the finite element, but here we cannot comment about what is going to be the displacement value at the collapse. So we are directly getting the value of failure load, and we are directly getting the value of the stability factor in case of stability of slope. So we will not be able to make any comment about getting the displacement for a particular value of the load. So this is going to be one serious limitation of this approach. We can talk about directly what is going to be the failure load, and we can apply the factor of safety, and we can accordingly design the structure, including the tunnels, foundations, embankments, etc. But will not be able to comment about the displacement. So I think as a supervisor,
I think you are right. That is what I said. Ki there, one of the novel feature is you can obtain the displacement at any given load also, not only failure, any given displacement.
But so only thing is, Professor Sahu, only difficulty is.
And second question, just rejoinder, I want to ask you. So slip line can give either way, na? It can give upper bound a little higher than the exact solution, as well as little lower than the
exact solution. Is always a lower bound. Solution is always a lower bound because we don't consider the kinematics of the problem. It is only from the static only. But it can be the best lower bound. Best lower bound means the maximum value of the failure load. It cannot give the upper bound as far as the slip line method is concerned.
So is there any velocity based slip line method also? No.
We can find out what is going to be the kinematic admissibility of the slip lines, which are being directly determined by the slip line method. But we cannot directly find out what is going to be the upper bound solution from your slip line method.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. ठीक है. Congratulations, Dr. Patra. Dr. Debashish.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
so I
congratulate Debashish and thank you. So we will exit.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining. And now I think we should.
So Jain Kumar, before we exit, you need some. You will be sending some paper for signing, right?
I will be immediately sending one paper to you by email. You have to please sign it, scan it, and send it to me as early as possible.
Okay. Immediately I will do that.
Please, thank you very much.
Save the recording.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I congratulate Mr. Debashish also now. Thank you very much.
Debashish, save the recording.
Yes, sir.
Okay, bye.
Congrats. Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much.